Hello. Hello. Good evening, everyone. We're live again, a bit late this time, but as you know, the dynamics in our continent is, it's something that we need to address. Although we are not keeping up, but we try our best. So here we have today our friend Kwame Gonza, Pan Africanist. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and greetings to all those who are watching Connect to Africa. Recently, I was on a broadcast where I was invited to speak about the Ethiopian issues, and I was introduced as a member of Connect Africa. So
Oh,
I think you are really you are really doing a good job. So greetings to everyone who's watching. This is where we come to talk about Africa, and because we decided to come up with the understanding that if we don't put out our narrative out there, then they'll keep, the imperialists, the Europeans and the Americans, who are major imperialists and our major enemies, will keep speaking for us and putting out false narrative as Africa has been, as it has been done to Africa for a very long time. So I think it is imperative that we have networks like this. And Marleti, I think you really did a good job to start this network so that we can be able to, put out our own narrative, talk about our own things, talk about our own challenges, talk about our wins and losses, and where we see our continent going, the future of our continent. Where do we want our continent to go, instead of other people coming and talking to us structural adjustments, sustainable development goals, these things which we don't know anything about. They just bring them and dump them on the continent, and by people we really know are not even smarter than us. So I think that is important that we have these networks to be able to put out our own narrative and have these conversations which belong to us.
yeah, thank you. On that, on what you said that you were introduced as a member of Connect Africa. It's true, you are a friend and part of this show. But I want to make it clear also, Kwame Gonza has his own channel called Africa Reimagined, where most of the time he goes solo. You know people how solo music, solo instruments are so sweet. So you want that Pan-African talk. So go and subscribe to his channel and hear for what he has to say. I am sure you would. I mean, I'm very happy that you're doing that. And so we all are doing our what we can. Eventually, we will get there. So let's go to our today's topic. As you know, or as you have been following, 2 days ago or 48 hours or less than, TPLF has again started war, just like they did when they started the war in Ethiopia in beginning of November 2020. Now, this time, where the government has released a statement about it. But the thing is, I want to bring this to the audience attention and to you as well, so that you can answer us from that perspective. There was a number of trials of peace talk, and it was led by the African Union, and just recently the US and others, who, by the way, said their interest groups wanted to meddle in this peace talk negotiation, and TPLF has discredited the African Union effort, and they said they wanted to be led by the Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta. And so, surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, right after the election in Kenya, they are not talking about anything, and now all that peace talk is thrown out of the window, and they have started a war. To what extent now this time Ethiopia's response should be, And this is for sure. We have been saying it's Ethiopia was saying it has been fighting an African war. And how do you see this, the meddling of the Western into this? Please, yeah, share your view with us.
Thank you, Malit. It is for me. It is fortunate that I've been following what has been going on ever since this war started um, in Ethiopia. Or, no, I would not even call it a war because there's really no fighting, but this mutiny or rebellion has started because we have a group of people who were not elected, democratically as a government, but rather, being sponsored from outside to destabilize a country which has been growing, until 2020. Uh, when COVID broke out, we know that Ethiopia was the fastest growing economy in Africa. It was growing between 8 to 10%, 8 to 10% around there. So, I see this as a deliberate destabilization by a group of people who have been historically enemies of the continent. And I think it is one of the ambassadors who recently said it, that historically these are our enemies. They are enemies of Africa. They are enemies of Ethiopia and enemies of Africa. And they are working around the clock, to destabilize the continent so that the continent doesn't grow. Because for a very long time, the continent, Africa, has been seen as a garden where you just come and uproot, food crops and send them and eat them. So it's a garden where they think that they can just come and take raw materials, go make products and bring them back, and then sell them to us. Sell to us our own products. So now that narrative that now that we are trying to change that narrative as Africans, to try to start manufacturing, as we have seen Ethiopia in the past. A lot of industrialization has been going on. It has been working with China on a lot of industrialization, creating industrial parks and then projects. We have projects like the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Which projects are going to power the almost the whole nation, double up the amount of energy that has been produced in the country, and then export the excess energy to Kenya. As we know, Kenya signed contracts with Ethiopia in, I think, between January and March to deliver some of that energy, because Kenya immediately jumps on board and saw that this is a very good project. We need to jump on board and get this energy real quick, because we need also to power our industrialization. So this is a project you see that it is very beneficial to the region. So it is only uh, for them, it is only unfortunate that they are trying to intervene and destabilize the region. So it tells you what they wish for us. It tells you what the United States and Europe wish for Africa. They don't wish that we should be living in peace. They don't wish that we should be using our own resources to develop ourselves. They don't wish that we should be rich as them. They still believe that we should be slaves and, hewers of wood and drawers of water for them. They should be sitting in Europe, and then we should be working for them in Africa, for them to, their masters and, stuff like that. So they want to be these oppressors, and now they have turned into these bullies who are being rejected all over the world, from Iran, Cuba, Afghanistan, where they ran recently. So everywhere now where they are going, they are being defeated. So I believe that even here in Ethiopia, uh, generally in Africa, they will be defeated because they have been defeated before. Ethiopia has fought these battles many times, numerous times, and it has come out on top. And I want to admire actually the resilience of the Ethiopian people and their ability to mobilize the rest of Africa and, come up against this challenge and, and confront it head on. I admire really the spirit of nationalism. So it goes on to show you that if the people have the right leadership at the head, the right person to lead them, then the people will defend their country. It's the same thing with Africa. The A lot of Africans are tired really of being looked at as inferior people, as people who are supposed to be told everything what to do. That is why you see that Africans are disappointed in their leadership, because they want their leadership. We Africans, we want our leadership to stand up, stand up and show us that you can defend us, and then we will stand behind you. So I really admire the spirit of nationalism, and at the same time Pan-Africanism, and the Prime Minister Abe himself has really done well to mobilize the resources internally, the media, then mobilizing the region, mobilizing the Pan-African forces. The normal movement also has done an incredible job around the globe to mobilize the rest of Africa, not only Ethiopia, but mobilizing the rest of Africa. It has done. And the first round, the imperialists failed. Okay, they failed. The first round, they failed because it was media propaganda, as we saw what happened with when they were when they wanted to attack Iraq and Libya. The first thing they did was the media propaganda, starting the media propaganda. As you know, they have their fake news, as Trump calls them. Their own Trump calls them fake news. That what they publish and they are putting out there is fake news. So they have this fake news that they start putting it out there, but the normal movement was not taking it. So they confronted the CNN and the fake news up to the CNN headquarters, and BBC, all of them, we confronted them. Even Al Jazeera, which has sold out. Al Jazeera used to be a network we used to rely on for news, but now it was also corrupted by the Americans. That when we are talking about what happened in Libya, Al Jazeera was one of the leaders who were putting out fake news, and they, which led to the attack on the government in Libya. Up to now, the country has never stabilized. We are going 10 years now down the road. The country has never stabilized, and it may not stabilize even up to another 10 years or even 20 years. So that is the first tool which they used. So that first round, we defeated it. Ethiopia won the war. The African people won the war. The normal movement mobilized the people. The first round of media propaganda, they didn't survive. So we won the war. Ethiopia came out on top. And then we went to the second round. The second round was about convincing, the region. Blinken, you saw Blinken went to Kenya, where, the Secretary of Foreign Affairs in Kenya immediately said that this problem, we will solve it. We don't believe that this problem should be intervened in. The external forces should intervene. This is an internal, issue strictly, and we believe that Ethiopia has its capacity. And I just want to applaud, on one side, Kenya for doing that on that side. And then also he went to Senegal. Blinken went to Senegal, and then he went to Nigeria, and all in this, I think he wanted to convince, and it is not. I think Macky Sall in Senegal also saw it in a certain way, that he was the incoming chair of the African Union. So he saw it that to betray it would not make sense, and it would not look well before the other African heads of state. And imagine, Addis Ababa is where the headquarters of the African Union is, the administrative capital of the African continent. So I think he didn't see it well. So they were not able to succeed. They went to Nigeria. Nigeria, I think Obasanjo also, I think he needs to be commended. I think he tried also to resist them because they were running around the African Union during that period when they were going to Kenya. You know, the U.S. representative in the Horn of Africa was always frequenting the African Union headquarters that time. But we see that, the African Union, it is not to the level where we want it as an organization, but they tried, they played their part, yeah. So the pieces, I think the prime minister has moved them very well, and he needs to be commended. The prime minister has moved his really, he has played his chess pieces very, very, very well in the region. So the second round too, they lost. Okay, they lost because they wanted to convince the region to turn against Ethiopia and claim that there is an attack and what. It's the same thing. When you look at imperialism, how it plays, the playbook is the same. They play in the same way. You go to Libya and see what happened during Libya. During the Libya time, they said Gaddafi was attacking a group of people. He was attacking his own people. We need to go and rescue the people. It's an attack on human rights. So it's the same playbook they were trying to use in Ethiopia. They were saying the government is attacking its own people, a group of people from Tigray. Genocide is going on. It's the same playbook they use against, Gaddafi in Libya. They said Gaddafi is attacking the people. He's attacking the people, I think, from Benghazi. The people are dying. He's killing the people. He's going to carry out a genocide. Let's go and rescue the people. And we saw what happened. So the playbook is the same. And when you start the imperialism, that is why it is very, very important for people to study imperialism, to study books like Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism, which was written by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And I know, Mahlet, you told me that you got this book, but
Yeah.
I would encourage all the youth of Africa to get this book. This book, even if you Google it on the internet, you can get it. That book, even if you read just one chapter, which is also available on the internet, and those who want it and they don't have it, they can comment down on this video. They leave their contact or WhatsApp number. I will send them that book. So they should read that book, because when you read that book, which was written by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism, which was written in 1965, you will understand everything that imperialism is doing. When I'm talking about imperialism, I mean the United States and Europe and all the group of white people who who are the ruling class that are destroying the world. You are talking about Canada, they group together, Australia, all of Europe, and the United States. They move together in destroying the world, and the UK. So that is the imperialism I'm talking about. So they were defeated, and I believe, personally, I believe we are in the third round right now, whereby during the period when Abdul Fattah Sisi, the president of Egypt, was going to Washington in 2011. I think it was 2011 or 2020, and he was talking to Trump about the dam, and he was in Washington. The Prime Minister Abiy was in the region, trying to get support. Was in Uganda, was in Kenya, was engaging Rwanda, was engaging Democratic Republic of Congo. He was just in the region, in the neighboring countries. Apart from Sudan, I don't know whether he went to Sudan, but he was around the region, to get the support, and he surely got the support, because most of the countries in the riparian countries, they don't agree with the agreements, the colonial agreements, which Egypt was trying to bring up. We know that all these countries, they share some of the water of the Nile, they contribute. So all of them, they were on the side of Ethiopia, because they had, before sat and agreed that we do not want these neo-colonial agreements, to be implemented on this continent. We don't want these colonial agreements to be implemented on the continent. So they disagreed with Egypt. So Egypt decided to run to Washington, and Trump, as we know, his candidate talk, his candor, he said that Egypt will come and blow up that dam and stuff like that. Which was unacceptable, of course, before the African Union and the African states. They saw this as reckless, talk, reckless words, which will bring very, very dangerous consequences for Egypt if he dares do that, because the whole of the African continent would definitely turn against Egypt or
So
and the
if
United States.
let me just come in, because we are kind of rounding up this, wrapping up this one, not the whole session, but just for this specific question before you finish, I wanted to interject. So, like, if it is like the same playbook that we are seeing, then can you comment how this third round is going to end up now? Or is
Yeah,
there
I
anything
think
that Ethiopia should do from learning from the past two attempts?
Yeah, really, I think that Ethiopia is doing very well. The prime minister, I think, is a very, very smart man. He's someone who has learned. Can you imagine me? I know what is going on. So can you imagine that the prime minister doesn't know what is going on? I think he knows what is going on. He knows very, very well what is going on. He knows the history. He's a very, very smart man. Even when you look at the speech which he gave at the 35th ordinary session of the African Union, this year in which was in March. I think it was in March or April, somewhere there. You could see in the speech which he gave that he's very much aware of history. He's very much aware of the future. He's very much aware of what is going on when he spoke about forces which are against, Ethiopia, and then he said that he saw how it was important that Africa stood behind Ethiopia. That if it was not for Africa to stand behind Ethiopia, Ethiopia would have been consumed. So he is very much aware. And then one of the things he suggested was the formation of a media house, our own media house, to put out African, information, so that we are not, because he said that we are being attacked by calculated, you know, pieces of information that are being put out by some media systems. So it shows you that he's at par with what is going on. He knows the history of imperialism. He knows the playbook which they are using, and the end definitely is going to be that imperialism is going to be defeated. I'm very, very much confident, with that. And so far, the prime minister has really played in the same way I expected. I remember when we had these conversations and TPLF, people were angry. Even the normal movement to a certain level was angry with the prime minister and the moves he was making. They were saying he should go and crush them, go and crush them. And I said that I think we need to be a little bit patient with the prime minister, because I think he's making certain moves and he's avoiding certain things. And I remember it turned out like that he was making certain moves, to see, the reaction of these imperialists who want to attack Ethiopia. Because, you are playing on the international stage, you are playing on the African stage, you are playing on the regional, on the African stage, and on the international stage, you see. And then you have, again, to answer to your people, who is the normal movement and the citizens of the country. So you have to be very smart. You have to have very smart advisors. And I'm really happy, with how he has played, even up to today. So when this issue came up that one of the countries in the region, is sponsoring the Tigray rebels, I said, I think we need to be careful before we react, either negatively or positively to this news. We need to step back a little bit and reflect. We don't need to immediately react to this news. We need to step back and look at the information, who's putting out that information. Okay, and this is one of the things where I think the normal movement had succeeded, because it was very careful about information, any information that is coming out. The normal movement, I think it was really, really doing a very good job. They were scrutinizing the information, who's putting out the information, because people have understood imperialism. They have understood neocolonialism, how it is playing. There's nowhere where the United States or Europe now can hide to attack countries. There's nowhere. There's nowhere where Macron can run. Now he's running around that he's going to Algeria to beg. People know that he's going to beg for gas because Algeria is producing gas. They are running to Morocco. They are running to Nigeria. They are begging now. But when we have been asking for, investment to invest, real investment to invest in our infrastructure so that we can develop our oil fields and gas fields, they did not give us all this, but they are jumping around it. So, but people have understood. You see, when Blinken went to South Africa, the foreign minister of foreign affairs, Mrs. Pando, she rejected immediately. He was talking about things, telling Africa what to do. She stood and told him that we will not accept this, and we will not accept HR, a bill 7311, HR 7311 that is being passed in the United States, a bill that decides where the United States decides for Africa which friends should be, Africa should talk to. Africa should not talk to Russia, to, combating Russia's activities in Africa. So all these things, they add up to what? They add up to the fact that people have understood, to a certain level, the playbook. And that playbook that is why it is not succeeding. So Blinken, when he went to South Africa, he gave his empty speeches, which I would call nonsensical, empty speeches which have nothing to offer Africa, nothing. They have nothing to offer Africa now. So, and the Africans know that, we know that already. So he met a lot of resistance. He went to Rwanda, a lot of resistance. He went to Congo, a lot of resistance. So even the Africans who have been for a very long time sellouts, I've realized that the African people are tired. Okay, they are tired of this, dictate. They are tired of these dictates, and we want to live dignified lives. So I think the end is predictable. The end for imperialism is predictable. People have been predicting. Many people have been predicting that the West is declining, and of course it is. And the decline is because of the emergence of other nations. We can talk of BRICS. We can talk of the fastest growing economies in the world for the last period have been in Africa, and Asia, China, and the re-emergence of Russia now we see. So it has to decline because now the other people of the world are sharing in the wealth. Okay, so the end, we all know what is going to happen, that they're going to be defeated. They are going to be defeated, like I said, in the third round, which they are trying. Still, they are not going to succeed because in the third round, they wanted to divide the people, but the region, to break up the region so that the region will, which has in the first round, stood behind Ethiopia to defend Ethiopia, so that the region can now distance itself from Ethiopia so that they can now attack. So that is the strategy which
my next question will relate to that. It's good that you just brought that towards the end of this question.
Yes, so I'm very confident that just to sum up your question, that the moves that are being made, not only by the leaders in the region, I think they are right, but more so, I think the Prime Minister is making some of the best moves I've ever seen. A leader make. The Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, I think, is making some of the best moves. Exactly, he's doing exactly like myself I would do. Like how I've been thinking is the same things which I see that he's making those moves, and he's making some of the best moves in the region.
Thank you, Kwame. Really, okay. Those of you who have been here with us since we started, Kwame talked about the book of the same name. By the way, you share the same name with your leader, or this Pan-African leader, Kwame Nkrumah. This is the book that I got. So I really can't wait.
Can you put the first? Let me see the other side.
A hardcover. So just a second. This is I don't know if this is really from the library, but it has this, or it's from the book. It has a map of Africa, and then I really neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. Kwame here,
Nkrumah,
our
yeah, Kwame
friend.
Nkrumah.
But you also have
Absolutely.
been telling me about these books. I can't really wait to get. I started it actually, but yeah, it's really nice, and I love the start already. Now, talking about region, the second round, the first round was TPLF itself attacking, and the second one was that external pressure by the US, making this shuttle diplomacy around the region, and then go to the West and talk to the current AU chairman and all those things. And we saw that Uhuru Kenyatta really made a good resistance, or Kenya in general. I don't remember if Blinken really went to Uganda now, but my next question relates to that. Let me try to share something if I can. Usually I'm really bad with this, but I hope I will make it. Entire screen. No, let's see window. Um, okay, you are seeing now all my document.
Yeah, I think we can see everything. If you want, you have to open one document, and that's the one you should share.
Do you see now something at tweet? Do you see a screenshot?
Pan-Africanism and the great.
Do you see? What do you see
Yes,
there?
yes, I can see. I can see something, but
It's a tweet
um,
by
is
Muhuzi Kaine.
no, no,
No?
that one you have not shared yet.
Okay, okay.
You have only shared your desktop. I think you should
Oh,
remove that one.
okay,
You should
okay,
remove
okay,
that one.
okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Um, well, then I think I'll just talk about it. Yeah, I did not succeed. What happened is actually I do hear my echo. You hear the same? Why is that?
No, I can't hear it.
Do you hear me? I hear my echo. Okay, now I think it's better. So yesterday we saw that General Muhozi, the son of the Ugandan president,
Hmm.
has tweeted that he met with Prime Minister Abiy with his delegation, and he was happy and he has hopes that the conflict in Ethiopia will be solved, that African solution to African problems will be applied. But let's not forget that this is the same person a few months ago who tweeted, supporting TPLF and accusing the Ethiopian government. Now, we also saw some move by the Ethiopian government, that where the Ethiopian ambassador in Kampala has talked to the government of Uganda. So this is now the son coming there, visiting the prime minister, seems a follow up. Whether the visit, it was invited, the way it was presented, it looks like Ethiopia invited, or I don't know. But I just wanted to ask, when you have such neighbors that allow consciously or unconsciously to be an instrument for the imperialists, how a country should deal in, I mean, directly Ethiopia, how should it handle it with this relation with Uganda?
Yeah, I think I got that news, Mallet. You can try
Okay.
to share it. You can just put it up there. Just add it on the
Okay.
display. But yeah, that is the news. General Kainerugaba uh, is the son to the president of Uganda. Um, so this guy, um, he was making tweets when the war in Tigray started. I don't think he was tweeting in support of the Tigray forces, but I don't think he's very knowledgeable about the affairs of the region
Mhm.
and what is going on in the region. And he tweeted these things, I think around last year, 2021, around November. It was either October, no, November, around there. And from my understanding, uh, uh, it could be there is two things here. It is possible that Uganda can be used, to destabilize. Uh, but on the other hand, it is possible that it is not being used, but it is rather propaganda that is being spread. Let us go back, to how all this started. Because remember, the enemy we are playing with, has played this game for a very, very long time. The divide and rule tactic, they have used it for a very, very long time, and it has been serving them very well. Okay. And this was the essence of the Berlin Conference in itself, when they were dividing up Africa, was to be able to administer it and govern it. So they will be coming and talking to you, Mallet, because they know you are very close to me. They will talk to you in the ear, and they will tell you that I spoke something bad about you. And then they will come and tell me, that Mallet is not good. And then, we people who are close and we are talking to each other, and then we start being suspicious of each other. So when we are suspicious of each other, then we stop talking to each other. We stop telling each other secrets. So like we can come, and then I will talk to you, but I will be suspicious of you, and then you are suspicious of me. Then we stop talking about the things we used to talk about. The plans we used to have, we stop talking about them. So this is what happens, because this is a tactic. And now this guy who is creating this in between, now he succeeds in exploiting that difference to get what he wants. So this has been happening for a very, very long time. It happened even in the 60s, that they divided the Pan-African body into the Casablanca and the Monrovia group, and they defeated the idea of unifying Africa into a continent. So the CIA was behind, working strongly. And is the same thing which happened in the Congo in 1960 and 1961, when the prime minister, which led to the death of Prime Minister, Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, and he died because they came and divided the army from him, and they took one of the guy in the army who was Mobutu Seseko, and they separated him from him, and they said that he would, they spoke into his ear, and they said they will give him, this and that, and then he will become the president. And then they killed, Patrice Lumumba. So there was that disengagement. So once there's disengagement, then there is another scenario which happened in Uganda also. There's a president who was called President Milton Obote. Dr. Milton Obote was very, very smart. Was like a student of Kwame Nkrumah, who followed everything Kwame Nkrumah said. So the British did not like Milton Obote, because he was, implementing nationalistic ideals in the continent, building industries, looking for, to have industries which are owned by Africans in the country. So they used a military man, who was a general in the army, to overthrow Dr. Milton Obote. That is after overthrowing Nkrumah, of course. So they brought Idi Amin. And you know what happened to Idi Amin? When Idi Amin also started doing what they don't want, then they started demonizing him. They said he's a cannibal, he's killing his people and stuff like that. So these guys, they play this thing, they play it over and over. They repeat it over and over and over. So that is why I say that we have to be very careful. Like when news comes out like this and they say Uganda is sponsoring, Uganda is sponsoring the rebels in Tigray. So you have to run back, you have to step back. Do not believe that information and immediately react to it. Step back and relax. First wait, first relax, and then ask yourself, who's giving this information? Okay, who is pumping out this information? Where does the person come from? Where is the website? Look for the source of the website, the origin of the website. These things are very easy to find on the internet. So you will find the source of the website. So some of these websites, you will find that they originate in Washington. That is where the news is being pumped out, is being, doctored and created from. Okay. So like the websites which we use for surveys, they are created by CIA, for example, change.org, those things which we want to create change in our societies. They are taking temperatures of certain people to understand what is going on. So these are some of the things. But in the beginning, let me go back to the beginning. Like I said, in the second round of this struggle, all of East Africa stood behind Ethiopia. Okay, like I said, in the period when Sisi was in Washington, the Prime Minister Abe was in East Africa. He was in Uganda, he was in Rwanda, he was in Kenya, and all these places assured him of support. He spoke to, President Tshisekedi had just been inaugurated in Democratic Republic of Congo, and they assured him of support. So I think that when such news as Uganda is the one training, the rebels comes, we need to step back and look at history, because history is the best, predictor of the things that are going to happen in the future, or the things which will tell you what is happening today and the things which will happen in the future. So for me, my understanding was that, and is that if this thing is propaganda, then the imperialists are jumping onto the tweets of an ignorant person who doesn't even understand the region. Just because he's a son to the president, it doesn't mean he understands the region and what is going on in the region. He understands the history of the region. It doesn't mean that he understands it. He was not born in Ethiopia. He has not lived in Ethiopia, for a month or for it. So for him to come out and say his brothers in Tigray, how is it that the people in Tigray are his brothers? He has never even lived there for a month. You see, so you are talking about someone who is putting out information he doesn't even understand. So the imperialists are very quick to jump on that and capitalize on that. Like I told you, we are playing with people who can do anything for power, because they have been on the throne for the last 600 years, controlling the world. So they will jump and do anything. So that is one side of the thing. That is what I saw. And then the second is that if it is possible that Uganda could be, training these rebels, these Tigray rebels, then one
Those
of the
are, by the
first
way,
things,
there's no doubt that's with really evidence. But
yes,
you are, of course, allowed to have your own opinion.
yes. So what I had suggested is that if this is true, then the Prime Minister needs to engage. He should not disengage instead and fall back. It would create a big problem. He needs to go out there and engage, these people, convince them, and lo and behold, last week I saw this is what came out. I saw the ambassador of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian ambassador in Uganda was meeting, President Museveni. She needs to carry out her own intelligence within the country and collect the information. The prime minister has engaged even the son, President Museveni's son. This is the right way of doing it. Even the problems which we have been saying that they are having, Kenya is being engaged by UN and stuff like that. So for me, as a student of Nkrumah, and as a student of imperialism and neocolonialism, I think that imperialism is in the region working very hard to isolate Ethiopia. That is what I'm seeing, that it wants to isolate Ethiopia by any means necessary. Any means necessary, whether it is propaganda, whether it is what, even to create things which are not there. Because these countries have stood behind Ethiopia. So it is in the region to create that chaos and isolate Ethiopia and then get a chance to attack, because these countries have stood on the side. But when the prime minister goes out there and starts engaging, I think he's doing the best thing which I've ever seen. He's playing chess, these guys are playing, the imperials are playing chess and he's playing check. They are playing checkers and he's
What,
playing chess.
I am exactly thinking the same thing. I always think it in terms of chess. Yeah.
Yeah. So that suspicion, that means that suspicion has been, and then psychologically it defeats also the imperialists, because it will help. It helps, to defeat them psychologically, because they see that what they wanted is not what is coming out. They thought that, they are going to create a wedge, but the people are speaking to each other. They thought that people are going to distance themselves from each other. So I think that the prime minister, it is important that he should go out there, go back to Kenya, go back, go to Congo, go back to Rwanda, speak to the people constantly. The envoy should be out there speaking to the people. I think this is the best way, and he's doing that. So I'm really happy that the prime minister is making these moves.
So engaging, even if you see all that evidence that your neighbor is used as an instrument by the imperialists, then still to engage them is a way. That's
yes, diplomacy, definitely, because you can't attack, because you can't take up an army and go in there, to that means you have like how many enemies now? You have added a second enemy, to fight. You already have a problem internally. Then you are trying to attack another person who has been even in the region fighting in Somalia, fighting in Congo, who is very experienced in the region in fighting. So you would create yourself problems and stuff like that. So I think the diplomatic approach which he is using, I think he is the best. Is the best approach, and I think he will get results. I think Ethiopia will get results, from the region.
All right, thank you for that. Finally, in 2 minutes, I really would like you to share your view on this. There are so many my African sisters and brothers who think that what's happening in Ethiopia, it's a US-led, West-sponsored war. Yeah, it's a war that we are having in the country, and there is a tendency that to assume this is just Ethiopia's business, and that's it. It's not our business, as if what happens in Ethiopia doesn't affect in Kenya or Uganda or Djibouti or Eritrea. So what can we do to sensitize Africans wherever, whatever happens in each member state, it's an African business. If you can just
in the 60s, Ghana was isolated in the 60s. From 60 to 1966, Ghana was isolated in Africa, because Nkrumah was looked at as a crusader of African unity, and even to the extent that they started manipulating the prices of cocoa, which was the main export that time of Ghana, because Ghana was not exporting much of products of oil or gold. The main export was cocoa. So the imperialists went and started manipulating cocoa on the international market, because they control these corporations which are making, we've had President Nanado of Ghana, complaining that the cocoa is made in Switzerland. They send their cocoa beans to Switzerland, and then they bring back the chocolate to buy it in Ghana and stuff like that. So he thinks that we should build the factories here. Only that he talks a lot. That is his problem. He doesn't follow up. Yeah, that is his only problem. So he says the right things, but he doesn't follow them up with action. So these corporations like Cargill, the Cadbury, they control the chocolate, so they can pull down the price of cocoa and send it up. So this is what they did to Ghana, in the 60s, to penalize Nkrumah for publishing that book, Neocolonialism, The Last Stage of Imperialism, in 1965. He published it in 1965. So they wanted to penalize Nkrumah, so the people started demonstrating in the country. It's the same tactic which I told you that they use even in Iran. They use this tactic of fomenting discontent within a country. That tactic was first used in Iran to overthrow the prime minister, who was called Mossadegh, in Iran, to bring the Shah, so that he can be able, because Mossadegh in Iran nationalized the oil, which was that time in Iran controlled by BP, today's BP, Shell and BP. So they wanted to penalize him. So they fomented discontent within the country so that people can rise up, a coup and stuff like that. And then they brought it Shah, they brought a monarchy, and then they were able to come back to control the oil in the country. So it's the same situation which happened in Ghana. And when you are talking about Ethiopia, is the same situation that you see, that they have tried to isolate Ethiopia in the region, but these countries around the region have stuck with Ethiopia. And this is all due to what I said in the beginning, that there is a new consciousness that has arisen within the African people. The African people have understood that we are in this together. Okay, we are the same people, and the attacks that have been on us, they are from the same people, and they are attacking the same people. You can talk of the killing of George Floyd, Sandra Bland. All these are African people that are being killed. Okay, so I think that the African people are coming to the realization that, wait a minute, the enemy is the same, whether you are in the United States, the African people are being killed. Whether you are in Africa, chaos is being fomented. So the lessons that have been learned in Ethiopia, I believe that they can be transferred to the rest of the continent. And like the normal movement, I would not encourage the normal movement to stop, to go down, even if the war against imperialism is won in Ethiopia, because imperialism will not go away, until it is expelled from the whole continent of Africa. So if we do not expel it from the continent of Africa, it will still come back to Ethiopia. It will go and rest a little bit and stay in Sudan. We know that for 25 years, Sudan has not had an ambassador from the United States, but now they posted a new ambassador, just this week they posted a new ambassador in Sudan. So that is a problem for Ethiopia. So they will go to Sudan and wait, even if we win, in the interim. So that is why it is very, very important that we look at this problem, which Ethiopia is facing, as an African problem, and the normal movement should turn into a normal African movement, of working together with other movements and other people, and and other organizations, like the recently attacked organization, the Africa People Socialist Party, which of Omali Yashitela, which was attacked by the FBI last week. We need to work together, all of us, in expelling imperialism from Africa, because if we do not, then they are going to take over the continent, and it will be very, very painful for the black people. We have seen the killing of George Floyd, and other Africans, Sandra Bland. It will be even more painful if they can do this in broad daylight on camera. Then it will be broad daylight on camera in Africa, shooting live when we are seeing. So how do we prevent this? We have to take the lessons, the struggle which Ethiopia has gone through, the lessons that I've learned, how we fought the war through the media, and then coming together, bringing our nationalities together, and eliminating that, extreme or unnecessary, tribalism or unnecessary nationalism, and understand that we are Africans. Because if we concentrate on the extreme nationalism and say I'm Ugandan, I'm Kenyan, I'm this, then these guys are going to come and exploit that. We need to understand, first of all, that we are Africans. And what did our ancestors want, first of all? Why did they establish the Organization of African Unity in Addis Ababa? These people, they wanted to establish a government. Nkrumah wanted to establish a government for us to identify ourselves as Africans. We can be Ethiopians and Kenyans within a strong Africa. This is what Nkrumah wanted. Okay, this is what our forefathers like Haile Selassie wanted. This is what Sobukwe, wanted. Okay, this is what Nyerere wanted. This is what they wanted. This is what our forefathers and our foremothers, Winnie Mandela, wanted. Honorable Marcus Garvey, George Padimo, Walter Rodney. This is what they wanted us to do, so that we can be able to protect the whole race around the world. So we have to understand that this is the time for us to do that. And we have to come together and identify as Africans, first of all. And our extreme enemy, our major enemy for the last 600 years has been European imperialism and Western imperialism. We have to understand that. And clearly that is our major enemy, and he's doing all the manipulations around the continent to keep himself afloat, because his economies are declining, because the economies are falling, because their things are falling apart. So they are looking for a lifeline, and we cannot allow them to do that. So we have to come back together and fought in the same spirit, and fight in the same spirit that our ancestors fought, in the 18th century, and even in the 20th century, in the earliest part of the 20th century, 1945, 1791 and 1945, when they fought just to give us dignity as African people when we didn't have any. So now we have to fight. This generation has to fight to take back the continent and its resources, so that we can develop it. So that is what we are fighting for. And I think that is the approach that we have to take as Africans, from the lessons, from the lessons of what Ethiopia has been going through, and definitely the war which is going to win.
Thank you very much, Kwame, for that. It was an educative, very enlightening, as usual. So yeah, it was a pleasure to have you here again. Of course, we will continue discussing what's happening. And good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
And
Mahlet,
thank you for all the audience that we
Thank you.
that have attended. And please be a family. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.